Public Service Commission's meeting of August, I'm sorry, I wish it were August, September 22nd, 2015. The most important thing of the entire afternoon is not on the agenda. And I'm sorry to all the companies here, but the most important thing on the agenda is Connie McDowell. Is Connie here?
Yes.
Would you be kind enough to come up here? We're sorry to let you go. Oh, no. Well, Connie has been a great contributor to the Public Service Commission over the years, and I want you to announce publicly and with great pride in her efforts, and thanks for all of her help. That she's going to be presenting a certificate of 25 years of service to the state of Delaware. And so your 25 years, you'll have a pension wrapped up. Connie, thank you so much on behalf of the commission. You want to make a speech or anything?
I don't think so.
Okay. After 30 years, you have to give a speech. Also, we have not a guest, but a very welcome member of the family in attendance. That's Bill O'Brien. I'd like to acknowledge Bill's presence and ask him to come forward with his, I guess, is Bill here?
Yes.
Gosh, he's so shy today, Bill. Come on up here and introduce your guest.
Oh, thank you. Morning, Chair, Commissioners.
Morning.
Bill O'Brien. Actually, I have a new position also. I'm with Chesapeake Utilities. I have been Director of Regulatory Affairs, but just recently we hired our very first in the history of the company in-house General Counsel. And I'd first like to introduce him, Jim Moriarty, to the Commission.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Jim comes from Washington, D.C., at least most recently from Washington, D.C. He was a partner with Locke Lord. He's got over 25 years of energy experience. Mainly before the FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, but he also has energy acquisition experience, corporate governance, so he's a good fit for in-house corporate counsel. He's also vice president and corporate secretary, so he's building a team over there, and that's my new position as associate general counsel. As most of you know, I am a member of the Delaware Bar. Jim did get sponsored over at the Supreme Court, so he has a limited bar membership designed for in-house corporate counsel. But I just wanted to introduce Jim, and we do have an item on the agenda later.
You do. We are. Mr. Moriarty, welcome to the state of Delaware and to the Public Service Commission. We're pleased to have you on board, and we have a lot of pride and faith in our ex-executive director over there. We don't always find the way he argues, but we like him and welcome aboard. Any commissioners have any questions or want to say anything?
Well, it's a privilege.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Look forward to working with you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And we have also today, as happens fairly often, and we're a pleasure to see Gary Stockbridge here, the president of Delaware Power and Light. And the first item on the calendar is the reading of the meeting minutes of August 18th, 2015. If we could have a motion to get them on the floor, on the table, I have a couple of amendments I'd like to make to the minutes.
And we adopt the minutes of August 18th, 2015.
Second.
The motion on the table is to approve the minutes of August 18th. I would like to suggest the following, hopefully friendly amendments to the minutes. I'd like to indicate that the line where it says Brenda Mayrack, Esquire, appeared on behalf of the Public Service Commission, that it read on behalf of the Commissioners of the Public Service Commission. Secondly, I would like to amend it to indicate that a motion was made by Commissioner Conaway and seconded by Commissioner Correa to approve the release of the documents agreed upon and to keep confidential those agreed upon by Ms. Mayruck and Ms. Metz, and delete the words "as part of the settlement process" and add in the words based upon an independent review of the documents and the FOIA statute, and the finding that Verizon met its burden of proof with respect to the documents to be kept confidential. Ms. Ariak, is that satisfactory?
That is.
Thank you very much. Any questions about the amendments to the minutes?
I would just clarify that the first amendment suggested by the chairman was on page 3, in docket number 14-132. And the second change suggested by the chairman is on page 5, in the third full paragraph.
If to the Commissioners Conaway and Correa agree to the amendments with as friendly amendments?
I do.
And Mr. Correa, do you as well?
Yes, thank you.
All those in favor of the approval of the minutes of August 18th as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you all for your patience on that. There's also the reading of the minutes of September 8th, 2015.
Move we adopt the minutes of September 8th, 2015 as presented.
Seconded.
Any discussion on the approval of the minutes of September 8th? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion...
Abstain.
Oh, there's one abstention. Sorry, Commissioner Gray.
Abstain.
Two of them, because they weren't present. So the record should reflect the abstentions noted. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? And those abstaining, the two are Commissioner Drexler and Commissioner Gray. That motion passes 3-0, with two abstentions. The consent agenda is next on the agenda, and there are 3 items. Does any of the commissioners have any questions of or wish to have any of the consent items taken off the consent agenda? Hearing no wishes with respect to those 2 items, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
I seconded.
Is there any discussion on the motion to approve the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes unanimously. The regular agenda. In the matter of the adoption of the rules and regulations governing the procedure for inspection and copying of public records under the Freedom of Information Act. And we have, helping us on that, Ms. Donahue. Ms. Myrex, madam.
You have before you a proposed order 8790. This contains some technical amendments to the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA regulations. In some recent work we've done under the FOIA regulations before this body, found that there were some changes in the law that were incorporated in the Commission's regulations that needed to be updated. The Commission last amended its FOIA regulations in January of 2012. The legislature in August of 2012 amended the statute. So there are certain references in the Commission's regulations that refer to the statute that have since changed. Basically, some sections were added to the definitions section in the statute, which caused a renumbering of the definitions that are referred to by the regulations. So the order before you basically fixes those errors, brings the regulations back into consistency with the statute, makes no material or substantive changes to the rules. That's why under the Administrative Procedures Act, we're able to make technical or non-substantive changes to the regulations without public notice and comment, and basically by your adoption of the order today, if you so decided to do so. There are basically 3 changes. It's a change in section 3.7.1. There's 2 statutory references that are changed from subsection G to subsection L, and the same in section 6.2. I would urge adoption of the order by the commission, with leave to add additional exhibits to the final order. Basically, what you have attached is Exhibit A, which is a red line showing the changes. We would also need to attach a clean version of the statute, or as the regulation as it's currently written, as well as a clean version of the final adopted version. So there would be the addition of 2 other exhibits.
Thank you, Ms. Mayrack. Ms. Iori?
No comment, thank you.
Any of the commissioners have any questions of Ms. Mayrack? Looks like you did a very thorough job, and there's no questions, so I assume that someone will make a motion to approve the changes.
I move that we adopt the order number 8790 as presented.
Second.
Any discussion with respect to the motion to approve the order, 8790? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes unanimously. And the next one is the one that Mr. O'Brien referred to in the matter of the application of Chesapeake Utilities Corporation for approval of a change in its gas sales service rates. Mr. O'Brien, welcome back again. Please tell us about your application.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Bill O'Brien, Associate General Counsel for Chesapeake Utilities Corporation. Today we have in front of you proposed order number 8792, which opens the docket for our annual GSR filing. That's the gas sales rate filing that we do every year. It's essentially the pass-through of our commodity costs and our transportation costs for that commodity. It includes a true-up from the prior year so that it's a dollar-for-dollar pass-through each year. What this order does is it opens the docket. It allows temporary rates to go into effect November 1st under bond and subject to refund. And it directs the company to file public notice or to publish a notice of the filing and sets a comment period. The good news for this year, as laid out in the public notice, is that there is a significant decrease in the GSR. For a typical residential customer who's a heating customer of ours, they'll see a decrease of about 26% or about $40 on a winter monthly bill. We've looked at the order that staff put together. We appreciate their efforts, and we ask that you adopt order number 8792.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Ms. Mayrack?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Mr. O'Brien has adequately summarized the purpose of this order. It opens a docket for commission staff and the public advocate to review these proposed rates for gas sales service. And there will be a process for notice, public comment, and then an evidentiary hearing before this commission at a later date. And Jason Smith is available if there are any additional questions. The staff urges adoption of this order and the opening of the docket.
Ms. Iori?
Thank you, Chair Winslow and Commissioners. The public advocate has had the opportunity to review the proposed form of order and did make changes to it, which staff accepted and the company. And we support the form of order and urge the Commission to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to be heard on this matter? Any questions of the commissioners of any of the parties? A motion, please, to approve the opening of the petition. Or the
Move that we
application.
adopt Order 8792 as presented.
A second?
Is there any discussion on the motion to approve Order 8762? 92. Let's see if you all are listening. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you.
And Ms. Mayrack.
Actually, this one is Ms. Donahue.
Oh, no, I was thanking you. I just assumed that Ms. Iori's change was probably to the $40 figure in the application.
I tried to make it 80, but
The next item on the calendar is number 3 in the matter of the application of the town of Felton for a certificate of public convenience and necessity. Is there anyone from the town of Felton present? And Ms. Donahue, please.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. Proposed order number 8796. This is regarding a water CPCN filed by the town of Felton. Just as a note to the Commissioners, municipalities like the town of Felton are not required to get a water CPCN for any service within their boundaries, including when they annex any property into their boundaries. So although the town of Felton is not required to get one, they are asking for your approval of their filed CPCN for water services for one parcel of land. Staff have reviewed the application, and as noted in the order and the memorandum that was prepared to you, there were a few complications with it. Based on some items in the application, staff had gone back to the town, and what you have before you in the proposed order is a couple of different requests. Requests for waivers of what's called the publication requirement, a regulatory requirement that says you must publish in 2 newspapers of general circulation, notice of the application. And the town of Felton unfortunately did not do that, and so they requested a waiver of this particular regulatory requirement, which the commissioners may do based on the regulations. There was another waiver requested. The town of Felton had sent out a particular notice. It was a notice of annexation to the property owner, who actually asked to be annexed into their boundaries. And the notice was not approved by the commission before sending it out. That's one of the regulatory requirements. So the town is asking you now to approve the form of notice that was sent to the landowner. And staff is also asking or recommending to you that this particular notice, which was used for the landowner, be allowed to be used by other municipalities for future applications for water CPCNs, because the staff believes that this is a good form of notice. And that way, other municipalities won't stumble over this regulatory requirement. They'll have a form that they can use in the future, and they won't have to ask for any waiver the regulatory requirements. Sorry, I'm stumbling over that. So in proposed order number 8796, you would approve a water CPCN. You would approve the waiver requested for the publication notice, which is a regulatory requirement. You would also approve the form of notice that the town sent to the landowner of record, and you would be approving, as the attached exhibit, the form of notice that other municipalities can use in the future. And staff would urge you, therefore, to approve order number 8796.
Thank you, Ms. Donahue. Ms. Iori?
Thank you, Chairman. The public advocate is not involved in this docket, has no comment.
Is there anyone here from the town of Felton or the public that wishes to make comment on this proposed order? Seeing none, may we please have a motion?
Motion to approve order number 8796 as presented.
Second the motion.
Is there any discussion on the motion to approve Order 8796? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes unanimously. Thanks to staff, that was a very good way to handle that matter. The next matter is number 4, in the matter of the request for approval of standard offer service rates, procurement cost adjustment, and RARM filing. And we have, I believe, Ms. Scott from Delmarva.
Thank you, Chair Winslow and Commissioners. And I have with me Cynthia Knoll, who is the Energy Procurement Manager for Pepco Holdings, Inc. This filing has to do with making some changes to our upcoming Delaware 2016 SOS procurement cycle and process. Essentially, there were 2 documents involved in this process for which changes are being proposed. The request for proposals document and the full services agreement. One of the changes being made in the RFP was the fact that World Energy Solutions has been acquired by another company whose name is Enternoc, so that change is being made across all the documents. More significantly, there were several changes being made in section, basically Article 3 of the RFP, which pertains to establishing the pre-bid creditworthiness of applicants. Those changes have come about as a result of some discussions over some period of time with some potential bidders. And then we made some additional changes to the full services agreement to clarify some definitions, to make some modifications per PJM rules, and to delete the declaration of authority consistent with PJM requirements. I know that staff has reviewed these changes and in their memo has recommended that the commission support them. And certainly Cynthia is here if you have any more specific questions about this particular application.
It just seems to me that every time we have the auction results, we have the company, I guess, is it now Enternoc or
Enternoc.
how do you spell that?
E-N-T-E-R, capital N, capital O, capital C. I think it is.
I don't think there's a T in it.
No T, Enternoc.
I think it's E-N-O-C,
Had it all.
E-N-E-R.
E-N-E-R-O-C,
We got that down.
N-O-C, N-O-C, yes.
Okay, they've been around for quite some time and a highly successful company, but I guess it seems to me every time we have an auction, I think I always ask, one of the part of the auction, the last part of it is, how'd it run? Should we make any changes? I don't recall any responses to those sort of questions. I just ask that we be alerted to some of these discussions that are going on, or if we're asking about what improvements you're going to make into the auction, to maybe give us a heads up about that sort of information.
Okay.
So, yeah. I know myself in particular, because of the third-party suppliers and the effect the auction has on them, it's important, I think, to staff and to the commissioners to know what things are percolating in terms of ideas. So, thank you very much. Any commissioners have any questions of the company? Ms. Scott? Ms. Mayrack? Commissioner Gray, I'm sorry.
Well, I'll yield if you have a question first.
Thank you, Commissioner Gray. I can just present very quickly. Ms. Scott has accurately summarized this order before the commission. These are changes to the RFP requirements and process, as well as the agreement that governs bidders in the annual auction for Delaware standard offer service. And staff was involved in reviewing these changes. There was a process with the stakeholders, which are the potential bidders and parties that are interested in participating in this process, where consensus was reached on the changes that were made, and it is staff's position that the commission should adopt this order and allow these changes to go through with the auction coming up. The first one is at the end of November, and then the second one in February, and a third optional auction in mid-February. And Pam Knotts is available for any questions.
Thank you. Ms. Ivory?
Thank you, Chair Winslow and Commissioners. The public advocate has reviewed those changes and the form of order and supports the disorder. Thank you.
Any commissioners have any questions? Commissioner Gray?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have just a couple of questions for clarification. When I read through this, it says a guarantor's unsecured senior long-term debt must be currently rated by at least two of the three credit rating agencies. Does that mean, and I assume that currently the debt is not rated by rating agencies of the debt of bidders?
Yes, that has always been the practice. We just needed to clarify that a company needed to have ratings from two of the three rating agencies. That was always how we interpreted it, but it was not, as Pam pointed out, it was not as clear as it could have been. So we just wanted to clarify that.
We had some bidders that had questioned whether that was specifically the requirement or not. So to avoid that question coming yet again this year, we wanted to spell it out very clearly.
Okay, one other question. And it says, it's if a guarantor for determining maximum amount of unsecured credit to be extended, establish a requirement for creditworthiness collateral if the applicant relies on a parent or other entity as a guarantor. Can you just help me understand creditworthiness collateral, and have you quantified that in some way, what that means? Perhaps it's in some of the other supporting documents, but it's not really clear what creditworthiness collateral is asking the bidder to come up with.
Right. What we're asking essentially is that the guarantor either provide a letter of credit or cash in the amount of $400,000 per auction. That is the creditworthiness.
Okay, so it has been quantified more in the detail. Perfect.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Motion.
Move that we adopt order number 8795 as presented.
Seconded.
Are there any questions or any discussion, rather, on the motion to approve proposed order number 8795? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Scott, very much. Next matter is in the matter of the application of Good Energy LP for a certificate to provide electric supply services within the state of Delaware. Ms. Donahue?
Yes, good afternoon again, Commissioner. Two items that I'd like to point out about this particular docket. You received in your package the memorandum that was stamped as confidential, and I'd like to clarify that the memorandum is not confidential. It is a public document, and I have pages that are not stamped confidential if you'd like to switch it out. Let me know if you would like to do that. If not, the other item that I wanted to point out to you was that the company, Good Energy LP, filed yesterday a letter requesting to withdraw its application without prejudice. Staff had given this company a deadline to file such a withdrawal letter. The deadline was September 8th. Of course, since it wasn't filed by that time, we had placed this item on the agenda, and we had prepared an order and a memorandum for the review. Given, though, that the company has filed this request to withdraw without prejudice, the commission could treat this as a motion to withdraw without prejudice and vote on that particular matter, or you could alternatively move forward with the proposed order, which is 8787. It's up to you as to which way you'd like to go with this, although I'll note that staff does not oppose the company's request to withdraw its application at this time.
Ms. Iori?
Thank you, Chair Winslow. The public advocate was not involved in this proceeding, has no comments on the proposal.
Is there anyone here from Good Energy LP? Is there any member of the public here that wishes to be heard on this matter? Any commissioners have any questions of Ms. Donahue with respect to the application? Mr. Gray.
Yes, Mr. Chair. As I read through the supporting information related to this matter, the one question that wasn't clear for me is this entity, Good Energy, doing any business in the state of Delaware right now? Because it appeared as though they were listing Delaware on a website, but it wasn't clear from the information I had whether we found any business dealings right now in the state of Delaware.
Well, Ms. Loper is here to answer that question, but I think I can answer it. I don't believe the staff has found them to be doing any kind of business right now in the state of Delaware, but as you noted, on an application in 2010 in Ohio, they had listed Delaware as a state of one of their jurisdictions for business. And you want to elaborate on whether or not this has found anything regarding whether or not they might be doing business in Delaware.
During the course of the investigation, I did not find any additional reason to believe that they were conducting business in the state. They explained that it was an error on their part. Information had been forwarded to their webmaster stating that they were going to be adding Delaware as a jurisdiction, and they did that. in advance of the application actually being approved. So they immediately addressed the issue and took Delaware off the website and advised staff of that.
And that was based on the letter that you had sent to them, also accepting them into that.
Okay, thank you. No further questions, Mr. Chair.
Do you want to go ahead and adopt the Order 8787?
Or not, or
Yeah, or should we just
accept the withdrawal.
withdrawal? All right, I'll make a motion that we accept the withdrawal, and we'll see how that goes, okay?
I second that.
Is there any discussion on the motion to withdraw the application?
Well, I would offer a little bit of concern based on what evidence was provided from other states. We may not find, unless we look very carefully, whether this entity is doing business in the state of Delaware, but if it's without prejudice, and we don't really make a point that they have to diligently make first the application, get things in proper sequence. And from my understanding of the order, it was that they were missing the managerial and technical expertise to oversee their employees as well as their activities in states where they were found not to be in compliance.
I think that everything that Commissioner Gray said is absolutely correct. And we always struggle with these things, but the problem is that if we deny the application, then there are some pretty severe consequences for the company. And obviously, staff has rigorously gone over the application, made an excellent examination of the applicant, and actually communicated with them and told them of the importance of making sure the application is done first, making sure they got the material off the website, et cetera. So the purpose of withdrawing the application will be give them the ability to get their act together, subject themselves, if they want to the scrutiny of staff and this commission. And apparently there's no finding that there are any sort of problems in any other state. So if they do come back, my feeling would be they would come back having gotten good advice of counsel and strengthening their management position and doing whatever else they have to do to be successful and to withstand the scrutiny of staff and the commission. So generally speaking, unless it's pretty egregious, I always vote to allow them to withdraw their application. Any more discussion on the motion to permit the applicant to withdraw its application? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Commissioner Gray abstains. The motion passes 4 in approval and 1 abstaining. And we have the next is in the matter of Verizon Delaware LLC's annual filing of the FCC Form 481, which we're all familiar with. And that would be, do we have Ms. Metz or Ms. Sherry Smith here? So I guess we're going to have Ms. Mayrack carry the order.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
Commissioners, I'm happy to present this. This is an annual filing undertaken by Verizon, whereby they file Form 481 with the Federal Communications Commission, where they certify that they have spent certain federal monies appropriately. These are for areas that might be underserved by investments in infrastructure, and this is actually a national filing. And then the process is that they bring the certification here to Delaware to the Public Service Commission, where then they ask this commission to certify that the funds were spent properly here in Delaware. We have a draft letter before you. There isn't an order in this matter, so basically we'd be asking for a motion to approve Executive Director Howitt to send this letter and certification and filing with the FCC that we confirm that Verizon has spent this federal money appropriately. Staff did undertake additional investigation with the company. The company cooperated to show us, and I won't go into the specific numbers, as I believe the company would say those are confidential. We could go into executive session if you wanted to. but that they are spending well in excess of the federal monies they receive, both here in Delaware and nationally. And the staff's position that the commission approve this letter and direct Executive Director Howard to make the appropriate filings.
Thank you, Ms. Mayrack. Ms. Iori?
No comments,
Okay.
Chair Winslow, thank you.
Okay. And there's no one here from Verizon. Anybody from the public that wishes to be heard? Any questions by the commissioners with respect to the application? May we have a motion on the application?
I move, Mr. Chair, that the commission adopt and accept the recommendation to issue this letter of compliance with regard to Verizon.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion, further discussion on the motion to approve the compliance and certification that will be sent by Mr. Howard? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Mayrack. Next matter we have is Ms. Scott again in the matter of the application of Delmarva Power and Light Company for an annual update in the gas environmental surcharge rider rate.
Thank you, Chair Winslow. As you indicated, this is Delmarva's annual application for its environmental surcharge rate to recover rates charged in connection with cleaning up our manufactured plant gas site. This order essentially opens the docket, establishes the deadline for the submission of comments, requires that we give public notice of the application and the dates, and also sets a hearing date for us to present this application before the commission in November.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Ms. Mayrack?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Ms. Scott has accurately summarized the purpose of Order 8786. Again, this will open a docket and establish a process and dates for public comment and a hearing in approval of the environmental surcharge rider rates for the upcoming year. Staff would support its adoption.
Thank you, Ms. Mayrack. Anything, comments by you, Ms. Iori?
Yes, Chair Winslow, thank you. The public applicant has had the opportunity to review the proposed form of order and comment on it. Public applicant supports the proposed form of order and asks the commission to enter it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Iori. Anyone here from the public with respect to this matter? Any commissioners have any questions of the parties on this matter?
Move we adopt order number 8786.
Second?
Any discussion on the motion to approve the order? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Scott. And Ms. Mayrack. The last matter on the, not on the agenda, but on this part of the agenda is in the matter of Ambit Holdings LLC, objection to the production of certain documents.
No.
Yes, I'm wrong.
Yeah. Here's the
Yeah, 8785.
8785.
I apologize. Thank you very much. I must be eager to get to that one. That's why Ms. Scott didn't leave her seat. So wait till no, never mind, I won't make that comment. The matter of the application of Delmarva Power and Light Company for approval of modifications to its gas cost rates. Ms. Scott.
Thank you, Chair Winslow and Commissioners. This application is very similar to what you heard Mr. O'Brien talk about in terms of Chesapeake a little bit earlier. This is our annual application for our gas cost rate. It's basically a pass-through of the costs associated with acquiring gas. This order opens the docket for this matter, establishes the public notice requirements, establishes the deadline for comments, and also establishes the time frame to either come to the commission for a hearing, or if there is a significant matter that comes up, we would have this matter heard by a hearing examiner. This is a bit of a change from last year's process in that we have been working with staff and the DPA to streamline the process for the GCR so that it is more similar to what we do with the environmental surcharge rate, which you just heard about. So in having those discussions over the past several months, we have talked about, unless there is a significant issue that comes up that would cause the DPA or staff or a third party to raise some question about the filing or the rates, we would basically present this before the commission as an evidentiary hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Ms. Mayrack?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Ms. Scott has accurately summarized order number 875, except for the company-specific information and the substance of the rates at issue. It's essentially the same order that the Commissioners just approved in docket number 15-1362 for Chesapeake. This sets up a streamlined process for approving the gas cost rates, but still with adequate opportunity for notice, public comment, and a hearing before the commission. And staff worked with the DPA and the companies to come up with this process that should afford sufficient review, but also streamline the process by not necessarily requiring the use of a hearing examiner. Staff urges adoption of this order.
I would also note, Chair, that as with Chesapeake, this year our GCR also has a significant decrease.
I was going to ask you about that. Thank you. Ms. Iori?
Thank you, Chair Winslow, Commissioners. Public Advocate has had an opportunity to review the proposed form of order and make comments to it. We support the form of order, and we do support streamlining of the process. We think this will enable the docket to close somewhat faster than these dockets have in the past. So we support the form of order and urge the Commissioners to adopt it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Iori. Is there anyone from the public here to address this issue? Any questions by any commissioner on the proposed order?
Mr. Chair, I move that the commission adopt order number 8785 as submitted.
Second.
Is there any discussion with respect to the motion to approve proposed order 8785? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Now for the matter I'm so excited about. That's the Ambient Holdings matter. I think we'll see some faces out there that probably here for this matter. So if all the parties will please come forward to the table if you're representing or speaking on behalf of one of the parties. You, sir, if you would address identify yourself and tell us who you represent.
Yes, Edmund Johnson from Pepper Hamilton, and I represent the objector, Ambit. We've discussed with the, I guess, the Assistant Attorney General and reached what we think is an agreement. I'm really here to answer any questions you might have, especially if there was any question about which documents we were claiming are confidential and which are not.
It's Mr. Johnson, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there someone here from the requester, the party making the request? The only parties present are Ambient and the lawyer representing staff.
I believe that's correct.
Okay. Ms. Mayrack?
And I am representing the commission in this capacity. Staff does not have a role in this. The commission received a Freedom of Information Act request for the request from Mr. Thomas Erling on August 17th, 2015, requesting certain documents related to Ambit Holdings, LLC, and its related entities. Staff did respond to Mr. Erling within 15 days as required by statute and notified him that there were some documents that were under legal review for confidentiality issues, as well as the third-party confidential documents that are at issue here today. In all, there are 125 pages of documents that are responsive to this request. Today, at issue before the commission are 32 documents which were filed by the objector and it under a confidential designation. Under the Commission's regulations, there's a process for notifying the company that filed the documents, giving them time to object to the production of those documents, and it did timely file a written objection with the Commission. They subsequently withdrew their objection to a certain subset of pages. The remaining objection does appear to be limited to those pages with confidential financial information that could potentially be used by a competitor. The question before the Commission today is whether Ambit has met its burden with respect to its claim of confidentiality, and if they have, then the Commission would decide to deny production of those particular pages to the requester.
Thank you, Ms. Mayrack. Ms. Iori?
The public advocate has not been involved in this docket.
And once again, there's no one here from the requesting firm. Well, I'm not sure how the other commissioners feel about this. It seemed pretty clear to me that what was set forth in the opposition letter by Mr. Johnson's firm, that, and also stated by Ms. Mayrack, that the documents in question are pretty clearly financial records that are confidential, proprietary, and which would probably be harmful if they're known by competitors. I'm not sure anybody else have any observations about the suggested resolution?
Mr. Chair, I think I heard the witness say that there had been an agreement reached between the parties. Is that a statement?
Not between the parties, no. When discussing with the, I believe it's yourself, I may be wrong. Yeah, I thought it was. That we had removed our designation from a certain number of the pages of the financial statements which do not contain confidential information. And so that if, instead of 32 pages, I think we're down to 24, 25, pages. And that's the only agreement that we'd reached, is that there was a question raised by them as to whether certain of these pages should be confidential, and we agreed that certain should not.
So does the requester know the number of pages you're down to and the nature of their contents? And
I don't know the answer to that.
At this point, Commissioner Gray, the requester doesn't really have standing in this process.
Okay.
The Commission's regs allow the third party, the affected parties, which initially filed the documents with the Commission, the opportunity to object. And the question before the Commission is whether Ambit has met its burden of proof in its objection, and the requesting party really has no standing in this process at this point.
I understand. I completely agree with the chair then that it seems to me that the content of the remaining pages should be and would be classified as confidential.
You know, I think I've asked you this before, but the requester is out of state, correct?
That's correct.
And apparently there might be litigation going on between Ambient and somebody else. So it's just sort of, maybe it's lawful for someone from California to make a freedom of information request that makes staff go through dozens of hours of work to find out that it was for some, perhaps a purpose of which we wouldn't think was appropriate. So I guess my question is an out-of-state entity allowed to make a freedom of information request and put us to this sort of burden?
The policy of the Department of Justice, my employer, and this administration is to honor all FOIA requests, regardless of the geographic source of the requester.
Okay, well, that's nice of them to have that policy, but what you're telling me, I think, is that they have no right, but as a policy, we want to be open and transparent and all that, and provide the freedom of information materials, despite the fact they may not have a right to those materials.
Well, there's case law to the contrary, but certainly the folks I take direction from would not advocate that position, that we would deny a FOIA request simply because it was coming from outside of Delaware. Now, there is Delaware case law, and certainly the Delaware FOIA statute does not allow parties to sidestep litigation. So there is an exception in the FOIA statute that would not allow documents that are confidential, that have not been produced in discovery and litigation, to be obtained via FOIA request. There's also plenty of Delaware court opinions to that same effect. So litigation, if the documents are the subject of litigation and have not been obtained through the normal discovery channels in litigation, that would be a sufficient reason for the commission to deny production of those documents. Not necessarily because at least at this point, given the policy of the Department of Justice and this administration, because it's coming from outside Delaware.
Ms. Donahue, do you want to?
Yeah, I did want to add to that, and maybe we'll clarify. You're correct in the interpretation of the law, that FOIA does not require the response in FOIA requests to out-of-state persons. So you're right in that literal interpretation of the statute. And as Ms. Myrack pointed out, the Department of Justice has a policy of encouraging its clients to respond even if the person who's requesting is not residing within the state of Delaware, the out-of-state requester. So the federal government, I think, holds the same view that you're holding, which is that the statute and the federal level FOIA also says that you're out of state in certain situations. Well, not the federal, I'm sorry, that wouldn't make any sense, would it? But there are other states that also have the same language that Delaware has in its code, and they say, no, we won't respond to FOIA requests from out-of-state people who are requesting. We don't respond to people who are within the state, who are residents. So you could, as an agency, make that interpretation, as Ms. Myrick pointed out, in line with Delaware case law. But the Delaware Department of Justice would encourage you as a state client to respond to out-of-state requesters when
I understand. The only, I guess what my crawl is that my objection is that I was communicating with people on a Friday afternoon, and I know that Ms. Mayrack was working over, I think, over 1,000 documents, putting in a lot of hours over a matter, an issue that was really not about the documents, but about some other external issue. And this appears to be the same sort of thing where it just seems to me when there's a burden on the staff or the commission to be so open and transparent that perhaps we should have the option of not being so helpful to someone who's out of state and wants to get thousands of pages of documents or hundreds of pages of documents from us. Not only have staff working on it, but you have, I guess, whatever our local utility is incurring legal expenses. And then each of the staff members on the Verizon matter, we had, I believe it was over 1,000 pages of documents to look at. So, that's where I'm coming from. I'm not worried too much about us as commissioners, but staff has a lot of things to do that's important. And, okay, I think I've had a time to vent my feelings on that. Ms. Donahue?
Well, FOIA is common copy. It is a common inspect.
Yeah.
You could go by that, and we have form letters that we've provided to staff where the response could be, we have your documents, we've collected them, come and copy them, and you could handle it that way. And that way, you're not discriminating against someone who's out of state. They would just have to send somebody into the physical office and copy the documents. And that burden would be on staff to do the copies and mail it out.
But we still have the burden of reviewing for
Right,
confidentiality.
yeah.
Because, again, I guess it's the balancing of the public policy of open government and allowing the public and the media to access the documents versus the work that it creates here. But it also, I think it affects this commission's regulatory duties. If companies are hesitant to provide proprietary information so that this commission can perform its regulatory function, because in a year or 3 years it might be released for FOIA. I mean, that's why it's important to take these claims of confidentiality, whether they're filed with a confidential designation or whether the commission determines itself that it's confidential information, that we do take the time to review those and balance those interests.
I agree, but if we had a policy where we didn't accept the request from an out-of-state requester, I mean, that would obviously uphold the confidentiality of the documents. So,
The implication of that would be that the commission would likely be hiring outside counsel to defend that denial of documents to the Chief Deputy Attorney General that's not a position that we're able to advise you as our clients.
Because we're not taking any position with respect to this issue. I just wanted to discuss the issue because I think it's come up recently within close period of time, and it's just noticeable. And all I'm really saying to you is that, that we've made at least I've made my feelings known, and that it might be worthy of some discussion with with respect to what Ms. Donahue said, or about, you're putting us through a lot of work for this transparency for someone who lives who works in Chicago, Illinois. So, okay. And I don't think they're going to be voting for any of us in Delaware either, by the way.
I do have another question, and that is, under what circumstances are CPA audited financial statements for an LLC owned privately by, obviously, its members, stamped confidential? How would they ever be in the public record or eligible to be in a FOIA request?
Because they were filed with this commission as part of an application. So it's part of providing financial information is part of the application, I guess, to be an energy supplier, which is the process Ambit went through here in Delaware.
So it becomes part of that public record then?
Well, it becomes part of the commission's documents, which are then responsive to this request. But again, because of the nature of the information, as well as the fact that the filer designated the information confidential when it was initially filed, then that's why the commission's regulations for FOIA have a process to allow an objection by the filer so that it doesn't become part of the public record.
Thank you.
And of course, as we see here, the requester hasn't shown up to defend its request or make any arguments. I think that speaks to something as well.
But Mr. Chairman, I'd caution and say that the requester actually has no obligation to do so and actually has no standing in this part of the process right now. It's purely whether Ambit, as the objecting party, has met their burden. There's no obligation upon a FOIA requester to defend their request or justify their request.
No. Okay, I stand corrected. Okay. Anybody have a motion with respect to this matter?
Well, just for a point of clarification, what specifically do you recommend the commission is, what action specifically you recommend the commission is taking?
That the Ambient LLC, through its learned counsel, has met their burden of proof with respect to the documents that have been agreed upon to be confidential, privileged, proprietary documents, and that only the ones that were not so designated are to be released to the requester.
I second.
Any question, any discussion with respect to the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson.
We want to get rid of the confidentials.
There is no confidentials. Oh, those confidentials.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You pass the confidential documents down. Get rid of this Nickerson. Okay, there are no items on the hearing schedule. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to make any comments to the Public Service Commission? Seeing none, Mr. Howitt, it's your turn. Thank you, sir.
Chairman Winslow, Commissioners, thank you. Hope you're having a wonderful afternoon today. It's only going to get better because I'm now privileged to invite Mr. Gary Stockbridge to come up and talk to you about an update on Solution 1 billing and some issues that we've recently encountered with interconnection. I certainly welcome Gary here. I believe we have a presentation that we are attempting to load. And so if you would bear with us one moment.
Well, there's some demand here as well, so as soon as the supply gets...
I'd be happy to do my song and dance while we wait for the